10 wrestlers who got arrested during their career boom in WWE. The Big Show. The Big Show, aka Paul White, has been in the business for 3 decades and has managed to keep his image clean despite 2 arrests. The first was him being charged in December 98 for exposing a female employee in Memphis, Tennessee. Those charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. White's most notable arrest was him being charged with third-degree assault in March 99 by Robert Sawyer. The entire incident was caught on camera. The incident occurred at the Marriott Hotels and Resorts in Uniondale, New York, and the footage shows Sawyer confronting the former WWE star who blew him off at first. That only escalated the situation as Sawyer cursed at White and made obscene hand gestures at the pro wrestler. Now, White had to keep his cool and tried to get Sawyer to calm down. However, he tried to play Mr. Tough Guy by pushing the Giant. The Big Show's response? Well, he knocked him out clean. The former WWE champion broke Sawyer's jaw, but luckily for Paul, the Nassau Criminal Court saw this as self-defense for several different reasons. It was clear that Sawyer instigated the fight as Judge Thomas Feenman placed the blame on Sawyer by saying that he was irrational and out of control that night. Sawyer admitted to drinking at the Nassau Coliseum house show, further tipping the case to self-defense for the former WWE champion. Brock Lesnar. Before Brock Lesnar became a megastar in WWE, the former WWE champion was killing it down in OVW. Lesnar signed with WWE in 2000, and for the most surprising part was that he was in a lengthy tag team with Shelton Benjamin known as the Minnesota Stretching Crew. But before Lesnar was called up to the main roster, he got caught up in some controversy involving one of Vince McMahon's old friends, steroids. Given the steroid scandal in '93, this could have resulted in the next big thing being terminated before his career began. Lesnar was arrested for illegal possession of anabolic steroids in January of 2001, but the charges were eventually dropped as it was discovered that the supplements weren't steroids. Lesnar went on to resume his career and become the WWE champion over a year later. There's no telling if Lesnar would have been a star if those charges remained, or if Brock Lesnar would have even existed in the world of pro wrestling. Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's no doubt that Stone Cold Steve Austin had a legendary career that will be remembered for decades, but there's a black mark in his legacy that hinders him from being labeled as one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. That's Austin being charged with assault on his former wife Deborah. Deborah came in as a manager/girlfriend of Jeff Jarrett in '98, but she made a quick impact in WWE. She won the Women's Championship a year later, though she only kept the belt for a month. Deborah is notable for her time as a manager, including her ex-husband Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin was going through a bleak period in 2002. He wasn't particularly on the best terms with Vince McMahon and WWE, and even worse, Deborah alleges that he was very abusive throughout their marriage. On June 15, 2002, San Antonio police were called at 5 in the morning and saw Deborah crying with a large welt beneath her right eye. Austin wasn't there, so a judge issued a warrant for the former WWE champion's arrest for a misdemeanor charge of assault with bodily injury. He pleaded no contest to the misdemeanor and was ultimately sentenced to a year of probation, 80 hours of community service, and a $1,000 fine. Austin wasn't wrestling during this time, as the WWE spokesperson stated that the Texas Rattlesnake was suspended for no-showing several matches. From the outside, the charges didn't seem to harm Austin's career, though the former WWE champion wasn't a prominent figure during this time. Deborah left the company in 2002 due to her issues with her ex-husband. Austin and Deborah have moved on since then, though the former WWE Women's Champion has recalled the abuse she dealt with during a marriage throughout the years. Deborah mentioned in an interview, "I had this dream where I was married to Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm the top girl in wrestling. I live in this big old $1.5 million home and it's happening to me. It was like the 3rd time he hit me and I got really tired of trying to cover up my face on TV and just said, 'You do it one more time, that's it.'" Deborah has been an important voice when it comes to domestic violence. While it sucks that she had to go through such a terrible phase in her life, the former WWE star seems to be doing well outside of the wrestling bubble. Alex Riley. DUI cases are nothing new for wrestlers. However, for a young guy like Alex Riley, it can be the turning tide for your career. Riley was in the midst of a prominent push when he was arrested on November 17, 2010 in Tampa, Florida for driving under the influence. Riley, whose name was Kevin Kiley Jr., was released on a $500 bond. He managed to get the case dismissed in 2011 when his lawyers argued that the police didn't have any probable cause for a traffic stop. The judge agreed, so the sobriety test and the officer's observations were deemed inadmissible in the court. The arrest didn't do too much to hurt Riley's career, as the charges were dropped the week of his big match against The Miz at Capital Punishment. Jeff Hardy. And Jeff Hardy is a guaranteed WWE Hall of Famer. The former WWE star comes in an era where him and Matt helped revitalize the tag team division in WWE. However, Hardy rose above being a tag team wrestler and became a major singles star by winning both the WWE and the World Heavyweight titles. But what held the charismatic enigma back in his WWE career was his issues with drugs and alcohol. His biggest arrest happened at September 11, 2009, when a SWAT team burst into Hardy's home and found him in possession of anabolic steroids, 262 Vicodin prescription pills, 180 Soma prescription pills, 555 milliliters of anabolic steroids, cocaine powder, and drug paraphernalia. Now, you would think that this would be a bust to take down a master drug lord, but it turns out that Jeff was dealing with tremendous pain, and the insane WWE schedule led to his drug problems. Jeff Hardy talked about what led to his addiction on Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast. It was a schedule, definitely with the WWE, because if you're on Raw back in, I don't know, 06, 07, 08, 09, something like that, and if you're on Raw, you're basically gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, come home Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday are your weekends, basically. Do it all again, then you've got a long haul of the tours, the overseas tours that can last up to 2 weeks or whatever. But I think overall, because I have all these other outlets, as far as like when I'm seeing something I want to paint, I've got to go get a canvas and do it. If I have a song in my head, I've got to go record it, get a demo down or something. And motocross was huge for me too, and like building tracks because I love that shit so much. I never had time for that there in WWE, and oh my gosh, I think it just drove me over the edge, especially with the opioid addiction, with the Vicodin and the Somas, man, because it became something bigger than me, and I knew deep down, man, I can't live my life like this and depend on this pill like every day to get this feeling, and I knew better. And Jeff chose to jump over to TNA the following year, but he relapsed again, and it was notable because of his infamous match against Sting at Victory Road in 2011. During the same interview, Jeff expressed that it was probably the best thing that happened to him because it allowed him to finally open his eyes and get the help he desperately needed. Ted DiBiase Jr. Remember when you thought that Ted DiBiase Jr. would become a huge WWE star? Well, the former WWE star has seen better days of late, but Ted was at the most prominent stage of his career in 2008. A few months before he made his official debut on the main roster, Ted DiBiase Jr. was tearing it up in FCW. Unfortunately, an injury forced him to vacate the FCW Southern Heavyweight Championship, and a month later, he was arrested for DUI in Hillsborough County, Florida for crashing his sports car into another vehicle. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, which is great news considering that DiBiase tested at .137 and .138 to 2 breathalyzer tests. The whole thing ended up being a minor inconvenience as he was released on a $500 bail. Later in that year, DiBiase would become the World Tag Team Champion in his very first match and join Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes in the Legacy stable. The result didn't affect his career much, though it would have been a different story if someone got hurt. Jimmy Uso. Now, Jimmy Uso has had a nasty history with DUI. Before his arrest in 2021, Jimmy Uso was arrested 4 times for DUI. His arrest in 2021 was in the midst of his huge push in the bloodline with Roman Reigns. Jimmy Uso was a WWE Tag Team Champion at the time he was arrested on July 5th, 2021. It was in Pensacola, Florida, where he was high as a .205. The legal limit in Florida in most states is a .08. The officers claimed that the WWE star was swerving between lanes, and he even admitted to having multiple beers before driving. He was booked on a misdemeanor DUI charge with citations for speeding and running a red light, and he was let out on a $500 bond. Now, I know the result of what happens if constant DUIs are ignored. Tammy Sitch is a stark reminder of this, but the charge didn't hamper his career in any shape or form. WWE continued to push Jimmy, though it's quite possible that the company quietly forced him to clean up his act. Jimmy hasn't been arrested since, and hopefully the rising WWE star has left his destructive ways behind him. Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam was on top of the wrestling world after he beat John Cena in a classic match at One Night Stand in 2006. RVD was both ECW and WWE champion, but everything changed on July 3rd, 2006. The former ECW star has never been shy about his love for weed, so it wasn't surprising that he was eventually caught with it that night. RVD was with Sabu when an officer checked on his vehicle and found 18 grams of marijuana with 5 Vicodins. Sabu had drug paraphernalia and 9 tablets of testosterone. RVD was suspended for 30 days in WWE, but not before he was forced to drop both the titles in the same week. Unfortunately, that was the biggest push that RVD ever got in WWE. Vince likely soured on him being a top babyface after he failed to live up to the company's standards during the first week of his championship reign. However, if the arrest happened today, then things would have been a little different. It's been rumored that the company has lifted its ban on marijuana in 2022. It's a shame that RVD never got a chance to prove himself as a main event star after his arrest, but he still has a Hall of Fame career despite a forgettable WWE title run. Chris Jericho. Now, you can't be the man who beat Stone Cold and The Rock in one night and not get arrested at some point in your career. Mr. Y2J got a little too drunk one night with Gregory Helms, and the wrestlers were arrested in Kentucky at a Shell gas station. According to TMZ reports, the cops were called at 5 AM about 2 men fighting in a cab. Chris and Gregory were booked at the Kenton County Detention Center for alcohol intoxication in a public place. They were released only paying a $120 bond. Unlike RVD, this didn't have any impact on Jericho's career since he won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship several weeks later at Elimination Chamber. Maybe the punishment was that Jericho had to job to Jack Swagger after WrestleMania. We'll never know, but that's a rather small incident on the former WWE star's rap sheet. And Matt Hardy. Now, Matt Hardy doesn't have the same rap sheet that his brother has, but there was a dark period in his career where the former WWE star was dealing with addiction. Matt talked about his battle with substance abuse and how all the wear and tear on his body took a toll on him physically. Matt wasn't the daredevil that Jeff was, but all his years in brutal gimmick matches like TLCs and constant WWE touring left him in a state of pain. He started to take pills to numb the pain and continue wrestling, but his addiction got the better of him in 2010 as WWE sent him home from the European tour. Now, it was never confirmed why he was sent home from that tour, but Matt did state on his podcast that his pill issue was problematic during this period. WWE ended up releasing him, but his addiction issues only got worse when he made the jump to TNA. TNA was giving Matt a pretty good push until he was arrested on August 20th, 2011 for a DWI. TNA released Matt that very evening, but it only got worse from there. The police raided his home the following month after his wife Rebby Sky called the police and revealed that he was strung out on drugs. It was meant to be Rebby's way of finally getting Matt into rehab, and he did after being charged with several DWIs in 6 months. It was a rocky road for Matt as he was kicked out of the WWE-sponsored rehab 2 months later, but the former star eventually turned his life around and hasn't been arrested for anything drug-related since. But there you have it, folks. 10 wrestlers who got arrested during their career boom in WWE. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.